I haven't been so well since my resurrection for humor, but here it is. I've been listening to my favorite podcast, Mouse and Wings. Well, get the...
Mouse and wings and a 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 mouse and wings, mouse and wings and a mouse and wings, mouse and wings. Ha-ha!
Hello, welcome to Mouse and Wings.
Hello.
We are here together in San Diego. I'm Joelle. I'm Mouse. I'm the mom one.
I'm Julianne. I'm the single one up in LA, and we are here to bring you a very important and wonderful, amazing human being and great actor and producer and writer
And musician.
W. Earl Brown.
Woo! He goes by Earle, but you might know him as Warren from Something About Mary.
And is Dan Dority and Deadwood.
He was also in Scream.
With me.
That's right, with Julianne. That's
I was
where
a mere background person.
That is where they met, and he was Kenny, the
Yeah,
news.
he got killed.
The news cameraman. Spoiler alert from 1990.
Sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm very sorry about that. Anyway, he's an amazing actor. He's got a good heart and a good soul. We just had a great interview with him. We enjoyed it so much, and we appreciate him being with us, and we want you to hear that right away.
That's right. He's got tons of stories. We're probably going to cut this into 2 episodes for you because there's so many great stories. I don't want to cut anything out. They were so good. It was so much fun.
It's great.
So sit back and relax and enjoy this wonderful interview with W. Earl Brown.
Woohoo!
Am I late?
There you are.
There you are. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Hanging in there, huh?
It's been, 4 years?
It's been a little long. I know. What have you been up to? No.
Well, let's introduce us. Or do you want to do any little pre-chat, or should we?
Let's make sure our audio and everything.
You got good audio? I've got a Shure mic attached to this. I'm on an iPad, so
Okay.
does everything sound all right?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. There was a little bit of gut, but it might be because we're all talking over each other. So we'll just stay super quiet in between.
All right. There we go.
Yay!
What is in the back of you? What's that photo?
I know.
Well, that's a drawing of that's Lemmy Kilmister, and then the painting of Lemmy.
Yeah.
And I Motörhead, the band Motörhead. Lemmy was a friend of mine. He was a musician who kind of lived life on his own terms, and he died a couple of years ago.
I remember. Wasn't he a regular at the Rainbow Room?
Oh, all the time, sitting at the video poker machine at the end of the bar. Yeah.
I've heard so many stories about he was such a instrumental figure in so many. What was he to you?
Well, I was a Motorhead fan as a kid. Well, I was like 20 when I first heard the band, and then I really got into them. They were always an underground heavy metal / punk band. They kind of appealed to both crowds. And then I met Lem in 2000. A friend of mine, he had hired to play a gig with him. He was doing a cable TV show. And so he had this aura about himself. He was an incredibly bright man. Read voraciously, read history. Collected Nazi memorabilia, which is a story in and of itself. As I got to know him, I said, what's all the fucking Nazi stuff? And he said, well, I'm not a Nazi. I've never been a fucking Nazi. I know what the rumors are. But my earliest memories in London as a small child were that those were the motherfuckers who were trying to kill me. Well, they're all dead, and I own their shit. I win. But anyway, the day that I met him, I was invited to come down to their rehearsals, and it was a Sunday morning. So I got there at like 10:30 or so, and Lem is shirtless in his jeans, wearing his white leather cowboy boots, just exactly like you imagine Lem being. And Zach goes, "Oh, Lemmy, this is my buddy Earl. Hey, nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. Earl, do you want a drink?" I thought, man, it's Sunday morning. But it's Lemmy, sure. So he had a Maker's Mark. He had two cases. He only had one with him at a time. One was for a Maker's Mark bottle, and one was for a Jack Daniels bottle. and it was a Halliburton case. It cut out for a bottle and 2 glasses. So he pours me a Jack Daniels. We had a few. So we start singing songs, and we had a guitar pull. And I knew he loved the Beatles. He used to follow the Beatles. And he was Jimi Hendrix's roadie. When they started the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Lemmy was their original roadie in London. So I knew he was a Beatles freak. So we sing like a dozen Beatles songs. And Lem turns to me and goes, "Oh, do you like ABBA?" Well, I think he's pulling my chain. The heavy metal god liking ABBA. I said, "No." He said, "Well, you missed out on the greatest sense of pop melody outside of Lennon and McCartney. Zach, you know any ABBA?" Zach starts Fernando. So Lem starts singing Fernando. I'm drunk. It's Sunday morning. My thought was, I should be in church. I thought, I am.
The Church of Lemmy. Why not?
That was Lem, yeah.
Well,
he was a profound guy. I've seen videos of him spewing lots of knowledge. He was interesting.
Well, he turns to me that morning. This is the well, he turns to me because his son Paul had just moved over from London, and Paul had this on and off relationship with his father growing up, because Lem was gone all the time. Lem was never married, including Paul's mother, and so he would see him every 6 months or so. Dad would show up and they would go do something, and Lemmy had lost his dad in World War II, so Lem never had a father. So that was all of the Nazis are the fuckers that killed his dad or caused his dad to. So anyway, Paul was there, and they're talking about this, that, and the other in London. And he brings up some guy, Liam. "Oh, Liam hates me." He goes, "No, Dad, I don't think he hates you. He does, he's a bit odd, since he had the accident." He goes, "Oh, he hated me before he had a steel plate in his head, and he hates me after he's got a steel plate." He turns to me and he goes, "I screwed his bud. He never got over it." Well, being an American, I thought, well, my God, that's an unusual thing. One of your friends' pets. and I went, oh, his girlfriend. His girlfriend. Beautiful girl. She had inverted nipples. Have you ever had a woman with inverted nipples? I went, no. No. He said, "Well, it's a tasty treat if you're willing to put in the work." So, yeah. That was Lemmy. That was Lemmy.
See, he could write a little essay on nursing for new mothers that suffer from that problem. He has some tips. That's good. Oh my God.
But now I've never met anybody like him that was that bright, and just he was a drug addict. He lived on speed and whiskey, and anyway, he was a friend of mine. He was a unique individual, and I was gifted that drawing by an artist who found out that I was a fan. So,
wow, that's awesome.
That's
yay.
And this is just audio. We're not showing this video or anything, right?
It's up to you. We always have a backup video. I mean, we do put it on YouTube unless you don't want to, and then we could just do audio.
I don't care. Whatever.
You don't care? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, I'm Joelle. I'm Mouse. And that's Julianne. You remember her. That's Weens.
Yeah.
We're so glad and honored to have you
Thank
here
you.
today. Thank you for joining us. We're very happy to see you. And we feel like we've seen a lot of you. We've done some deep dives into your background, your research. Yes. And I was just going to ask you what you've been up to during all this time as a busy actor. What?
Yeah, quarantine. What happens?
Well, the hiatus just pulled the plug out of everything, I have done about a month, 6 weeks ago, the wheels started to turn again. I did a little independent film with Elijah Wood that we shot here in Los Angeles. And so that's done. And then I start back on a thing. I am not allowed to talk about it because of my NDA, but I start work on a thing back here in December that takes me through the next spring that I'm awfully excited about. And I wish I could share it, but the NDA is 7 pages long, so I can't talk about that.
So it sounds like a big deal.
It is.
Do you have a heavy shooting schedule and like it started up already or just coming?
No, well, it's it's a very popular show. That's first season is an enormous hit, and the second season is coming up soon. And I did some work on that. And then I don't even know what the schedule is. It's a heavy effects makeup stuff. So they booked me for 3 months. So I do have that coming up. And I want to talk about it, but I can't.
That's okay. Oh my gosh, that's exciting though. Good for you.
Yay.
That's great.
And Elijah Wood's awesome. How was it working with him? I had gone on the road shooting video for Gogo Bordello, and he was dating one of the singer dancers with Gogo Bordello. Do you know that music band? Yeah. And he would stay up all night. He was really into music, and I'm sure you guys connected on that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And horror movie. Yeah, we talked a lot about it.
That's awesome. Yeah. How fun. What is the name of that project? Can you talk about that one that's coming out?
You know what? I'm not sure.
Okay, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it.
I signed an NDA on it. That's what's ridiculous now is it's not on the internet, like the information about this film I've done with him. So I'm hesitant to talk too much about it because it hasn't been officially announced.
Yeah.
And now with social media being what it is, and the rabid fans, everyone is so, I don't get a script that doesn't have my name embossed on it,
scary.
Even through email, because they want to find the leaks if somebody leaks the material out. So I'm not sure how much of that I can talk about.
Okay.
I can just say I've done it with him.
That's all you need to say. We won't go in. I know, it's scary. Yeah. All right, then we'll talk about stuff that is already out. Okay, you and I met on Scream.
Yay, Scream.
And how is that?
Yes.
That was one of your first big breakout movies. Did you, right?
That was the first movie that I had billing on. That was a big, huge hit. Yeah. That was
Did
in
you
96.
ever expect that?
Hell no. I mean, I had read the script. I had done 2 movies with Wes. Wes was Wes Craven. He was the first Hollywood name that took me under wing. That was just a twist of fate. I came out here I'd kind of hit the glass ceiling in Chicago. And I was with an agency then that were in Chicago and here. It was sisters that ran 2 offices. And every year they would send out 5 or 6 people that were doing well in Chicago. So I came out here in the February of 1993. And I got a TV pilot right off the bat. So I go to New Orleans to shoot it. And then I came back and the pilot didn't get picked up. But I got back and I got a TV movie. And I called my wife and I said, we got to move out here because this is low-hanging fruit. So we pulled up stakes from Chicago and moved here that summer. And then it was nothing, 7 months of nothing.
Scary.
And which was the longest I had gone without working since I'd gotten out of school, that, not getting some kind of a paycheck. So the casting director who did that pilot was doing, I got a call. They said, Wes Craven, Gary Zuckerbrod is casting this new Wes Craven film, and he'd like to bring you in. Great, Wes Craven. Because I love Nightmare on Elm Street. It's one of my all-time favorite films. Still is one of my all-time favorites. And so I hated the sequels. I didn't know that Wes did not have anything to do outside of Dream Warriors, which is actually all right. But he had no voice whatsoever, no say-so in what became of Freddy Krueger. So anyway, they said, well, it's a new Wes Craven film. They're not releasing a script because they're real secretive about this, but you can go and read the script at the office. So I thought, well, I'll just go in an hour early and I'll read the script before the audition. So I get there and it says Nightmare 7 on the door. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be in a damn night. I don't want to be in one of those.
Yeah. And
then I start reading the script, and it was the first meta horror film. It was incredibly smart. It was, I don't know if you ever saw it, Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah.
The idea was it was the 10th anniversary of everyone who had worked on the film starting to have dreams of Freddy. People had worked on the film were starting to suffer and die. So Wes played himself in the movie. So it was a movie about itself. And it was quite clever. Anyway, I got cast in it. And there's one scene, there's a decent scene. We shot this abandoned hospital here in Los Angeles. And I was wrapped at about 3 or 4 in the morning. And I'm in the little the honey wagon, the small dressing rooms, the trailers. I have a honey wagon. So I'm in there changing to go home, and there's a knock on my door. I opened. It's Wes, and he just said, I got to thank you. Gary really pushed for me to hire you, and he has holds you in high regard. I'm very glad. We're going to do something else together down the road. So a year passes, and Vampire in Brooklyn was happening, and my agent at the time, they couldn't get me in the door, and I kept pushing. I said, look, he told me. So finally at the last minute, it was a one-line part, like literally one line. So I'm like, I'll do it because it's Wes Craven. So I got there, and it was at Paramount in the Roddenberry building in a conference room. And I remember I opened the door. He and Marianne, his producer, and Lisa Harrison, his assistant, are sitting at the other end of the room. And as I'm closing the door behind me, I hear him say to Marianne, oh my God, why didn't we have him here earlier? So nice. I get there, and he goes, I'm embarrassed that you're even brought in on something like this. Well, what happened is an actor got sick, unfortunately, that had been hired. So then I got bumped up into that role that the other actor was supposed to play. And it's still, the movie was me. And when we finished, Wes gave me his number, his home number.
Wow.
He said, stay in touch with me. The next film, we're going to find something. And that film was Scream. It was called Scary Movie, when we first started. I still have the script here somewhere. I have that original script that I had on set.
That is
cool. So that was how that one came about. And then we met because Jamie Kennedy had a crush on you. We were in the video store, and I drove down there because I wasn't working that day. So I drove down to have lunch on the set. Jamie goes, hey, have you seen that girl that she's working in the background? Have you seen? I said, who? That, what? Over there, her, that one. It was you. And then you and the crew came out. Because we always had a party every night, and y'all showed up at the hotel. Do you remember that? When I called him and I went, you need to come down here to the party. Dude, I'm watching the ball game. I said, you need to come down here to the party. I'm in. I don't want to. I said, you really want to come down here to the...
So basically you pimped her out. You deserve some pimp fees. And
he just had a crush on her. So
you know what I remember too is he sent you over to go say, hey, you walked over to me, and I think it was in the video store, and you said, hey, my friend over there, he kind of likes you, and he kind of wants to get your phone number. And I was like, and I was all saucy back then, and I said, well, you could tell him to come over and ask me himself. And then I guess he did later.
I had forgotten that. It's like elementary school, wasn't it? One step away from check yes or no. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then he came over later, and I happened to be in the dirty video section, and I was looking at some long dongs, and he came up and he was like, ooh, that's a good one. And I was like, ah. The rest is history. But
do tell the history. Did anything happen, or you guys just stayed friends?
Oh, we don't. That'll be the B-side album. We did end up hanging out a few times, Jamie and I. That's a story for another time, though.
Scream was my first experience of, because it became huge, and we had and I'd done a couple of movies in Chicago. So I'd kind of got the thing, movies are like summer camp. Everybody goes away and you meet this group of interesting strangers, and you guys have a shared experience for, a couple of months, and friendships form and romances form, and then everybody goes home and they go back to the next project.
Yeah.
So I realized even in Chicago, because people that I was like close with, I'd call up like, hey Bruce, hey man, it's Earle. Oh hey, So I'd already gotten used to that part of it. But with Scream, when we had the premiere here, because they'd already tested it, they knew they had an enormous hit on their hands. And I'm excited about going to the premiere party because I'm like, I'm going to get to hang out with my buddies, just like we did, because we hung out every single night on shooting that movie, and all of our hangout places burned down in the fire. The round barn that was up on the hill, the hotel that we all stayed at in Santa Rosa a couple of years ago. Anyway, going to that Scream premiere, it was the penultimate Hollywood see and be seen crowd. Like everybody, like there's all the heat. And I couldn't even get to say hello to David or Courtney, or because they were surrounded by, and that was when that was a real disappointment for me, in that I realized what Hollywood, the red carpets are, what the premiere, what that scene is. It's about publicity. It's not about celebrating and hanging out with your buddies. And then, things catapulted for so many people involved with that film, including Jamie. And then, and he was younger than me. And like, he came over to my house, and I think he was weird. Still the house I live in now. I just bought it back then. And he was kind of weirded out by the fact that I had a quasi-normal life, So yeah, I haven't seen him in a long, long time.
That's weird. I think some people, that's why I love you so much. I've always felt such a good vibe from you, that you've always had this nice grounding spirit to you. And there's very few people in Hollywood that have that, who are just good people. And yeah, I ran into a few people because I worked on Nash Bridges, and Matthew Lillard came and was on a episode of that. And I talked to him, and, you never want to talk bad about anybody, but definitely the, egos blew up, I think, from that film. And then I think people were humbled later, by like, that was a huge hit. And then it was hard. It's always hard to get work, I would imagine, depending on, did you ever have periods of just where something was huge and then it was a couple years of not being able to get roles after?
It's never gone that long.
Yeah.
The way 2 years after Scream, with the success of Scream, because it was the first movie that I had billing on. Now, that wasn't negotiated. That's the first and only time I've ever had front of movie, my name that Wes put up. Of course, the opening credits are at the end of that movie.
Yeah.
But I naively didn't even know that matters as far as your career, where your billing is and all that shit. So that was the first movie I had billing on. And then 2 years later, Something About Mary hit.
Oh,
and that's the one where I'm like, all right, baby, here we go. House is paid for. Here we go.
I love it.
And nothing. And that was a sobering experience. Yeah. And I was ignored or cut out of all the celebratory award seasons and everything. I wasn't invited to anything.
What?
And that really bothered me, because it's not like I had a great experience making that movie. Yeah. And I was frozen out of the success of that movie. But I still thought, well, there'll be a fucking sequel, because, this movie made $200 million, made $1 billion in the year with all the ancillary stuff. But I'm still thinking, all right, well, at least there's the sequel, and I'll get some payday on the sequel. No sequel.
It's so weird.
Yeah. So when Ben Stiller made Tropic Thunder, there's that whole speech that Robert Downey Jr. has to him about Happy Jack. Never go full retard.
Yeah.
Never go. You always got to know. The audience has got to. And I emailed Ben and I went, well, that explains my career.
Oh.
But
no.
Yeah. But two things with that. I think everybody actually bought the character. They believed it. And I knew instinctively that was the only way to make it funny, was to play it honestly. Because if you goofed it up or made a joke of the character, A, it's not going to be funny. B, the audience is going to hate you. And I don't flippantly use that R word that I just used.
Yeah. Because
Warren himself, the real Warren Tajan, plays Freddy in the movie. And he, at that point, when we shot the film, it was written for him to play Warren. But they were afraid that it was a little too much for him to pull off. So they created Freddie for him, and he was the president of the National Association of Retarded Citizens, is the name of the group. And Warren, he was the past president of the group at that point. But the blessings of that are twofold. One, personally, it was a few years after the movie, but I was out at the Roxy here, and this girl come up to me in the crowd, hey, are you? And she told me the story of that movie. She said that her brother has Down syndrome. And she said, my mom was wanting to see it. And she said, I had the VHS, I had the tape. And she goes, I wasn't sure how my mom and how they would take it. But she was adamant. So she said, take the tape over there. I'm watching it at my mom's house. And she goes, Warren came on the screen. He said, my brother didn't say anything. He stood up and he walked to the TV and he goes, he's special. He's like me.
Oh,
He's like me.
yeah.
And said he went and sat down and he goes, then we laughed our ass off for an hour and a half. So that hit me of like that. We talk about representation. Everybody deserves to see their experience and their life reflected back to them. Yeah. You know, they deserve to have to bring their life experience to a story. So I'm greatly honored by the fact that that family, you know, had that hour and a half of pure laughter, and that her brother got that connection. Yeah. And then career-wise with that, this was after Deadwood had happened. Deadwood was the one that knocked me for a loop because that show was, I invested my heart and soul in that. Yeah. And I worked on the writing staff. So I was working on it constantly. Yeah. Sitting here at this desk. So when it got canceled, I said, that show didn't end. That show stopped. And there's a big difference.
Oh, that was so infuriating.
It threw me into a funk, a big one. And I had not worked in a while, and money was low. And my wife, because when we had our daughter Anna, right after Something About Mary, she stopped working full-time to be a full-time mom, which all worked out perfectly for us. But I'm bitching and griping about something because somebody I used to audition for was getting paid $5 million to do a film. And I'm getting close to broke. And Carrie, just out of the blue, she goes, what are you proudest of? I said, what? She goes, career-wise, what are you proudest of having been a part of? I went, well, Deadwood? She goes, yeah, when was that? I went, 2002 was the pilot, series 04. She goes, yeah, if things had catapulted for you because of Something About Mary, you'd be the fat, goofy guy in broad comedies. They never would have cast you in that part. And you never would have taken a supporting part.
That's a good woman.
So she was right.
That's a good woman. Right. I like that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Well, yeah, me too.
Your wife just came up too. I love the fact that you guys are high school sweethearts. Is that right? Yeah. And you've been together since forever, right? You've been...
Our first date was in October of 1982.
I love that.
And, well, she was still in high school. I was in college. I knew her before, but it was a group of her friends were going to, she said, some friends are going to the movies. Why don't you come and meet us at the movies? And I said, well, she's really cute. And I said, well, look, what movie? She said, Halloween 3. And I'd already seen it, and I hated that movie. But she was really cute. So I went to see Halloween 3 a second time. We started dating right after that. And then we broke up when I moved to Chicago for about a year and a half, and got back together and been together ever since. But the great thing for her, that's why my friend Clark Middleton, who just passed away a couple of weeks ago, Clark, he said, my daddy taught me you give the world your best, the best will come back to you. And my wife, her dream as a kid, you can't see it, but there's a roll top desk sitting over there that was her grandfather's, an antique roll top. And she used to sit at it and play office. Now, we come from blue collar family from rural Kentucky, both of us. And she said her dream was to work at some big company someday. Now, how the fuck she thought she was going to do that living in Murray, Kentucky, I don't know. But that was her childhood dream. So when we had our daughter, she wanted to be a mom. So her dreams were set aside. And during Anna's second year of college, Carrie had volunteered for everything. She volunteered she was the chairman of the Arts for All Council, which was funded arts education funding here in Burbank. And then she was a choir mom. Competitive show choir is a big deal at Burroughs High. They shot the Glee pilot, was actually shot at their high school. And my daughter was part of that. And Carrie was a choir mom. So through her volunteers, she got to know one of the other volunteer moms worked at Disney. Anyway, long story short, in his second year of school, Carrie got a call from the HR at Disney. Said, we'd like to speak to you about an opportunity. So She got hired by Disney. She is an exec at Disney.
Wow.
She's been there 2 years now. So her dream came to her. You know, she put other people first. She put her daughter first, and then volunteering and giving of herself to the community. And she is one of these people that she gets a job done to the best, and she's quite bright. So anyway, yeah, that was another dream deferred that circled back around.
Aww,
so the world gave its best back to her. So.
That's great.
Well, it's nice you see that too.
Yeah, this is kind of my life, although I'm married to a lawyer that sits at a desk, so it's a little bit different than an actor, a whirlwind actor going on locations and shoots. Did she hold up pretty well? Did she come with you with your daughter, or?
When Anna was small, we wouldn't go more than 2 weeks. That was our given. Either you come and visit or I come home. Luckily for me, Deadwood happened when Anna was 3 years old, or 4, right when she turned 4, when I did the pilot, and it was here in Los Angeles. So that took me from 02 to 06. So I was here. I went away a couple of times and did films, but it's rare. It's only been since Anna was in high school that I've had relocation jobs. Wow. Like I spent 5 months in Austin, Texas in 2014. I spent 5 months in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2016. And then last year I was in Wilmington for 5 months. So that, but again, that's only been since Anna is born. Now, when I was in Austin, they came to visit. But by the time Albuquerque, they couldn't. That was competitive show season, and it was her senior year, so there was so much going on.
That's
well,
great.
Can I go back to, we have so many questions, and we have them in order of, and you tell us when you need to wrap up, but we've got, I love it. I love that you're available and free. This is so cool.
This is Kentucky. My husband's from Kentucky too, and things
where?
just roll. Lexington. His dad was a professor there, so he spent from 0 to 17 years old there, and then moved.
Where did he go to? Did he go to school away? Obviously, at 17.
Yeah. Then he came here, finished high school in Del Mar, and then went on to University UC Riverside. So yeah, right around here, but his heart's still in Kentucky, and we have yet to go back. So, but he's got that same mellow, just like roll with it. It's all
totally.
good.
You guys are you're just grounded. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then we elect Mitch McConnell and
Let's
Rand
get
Paul.
Amy McGrath. Yeah, get Amy McGrath in there. Everybody who's listening, please help campaign for that. Donate to her fund. We got to get Mitch out of there.
Yeah.
I have.
Yay.
Very good. All right, so let's hear some of these questions. We have some fans, and we also had some other podcast pals that wrote in and wanted to know certain questions.
So I did them in order of Scream, Something About Mary, a couple general questions, and then Deadwood. So the first one on Scream is, what was it like being on one of the biggest blockbuster films so young? You kind of answered that, though, I would say. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, it was when nobody knew it was going to be a blockbuster film. You know, that was the thing with Scream and Mary. Both were studio or studio adjacent films. So they had enough money that we didn't have to cut every corner, but we didn't have a huge budget either, which meant there wasn't a lot of studio oversight.
Yeah.
Because when the bigger the budget gets, the tighter the reins get. So both of those films were they weren't expected to do anything.
Yeah.
And both of them came out of nowhere and were huge. So with Scream, again, I had no clue. It wasn't until I saw it all cut together that I realized, like, oh, shit, this is something.
The energy was really, I talked to Wes that day in the video store and had a chance to, and it was just a real mellow vibe, and he was really mellow, and he talked about, he was joking around about Johnny Depp. He goes, I said, so how's it going? He goes, well, it would be going a lot better if Johnny Depp called me back. I did launch his career. And he was just like chatting with everybody. It felt like just a fun day out at camp or something.
Well, that we didn't find out till toward the end. The first thing he cut was, and ironically, just yesterday, sitting in here, I did a thing for Drew Barrymore's show. She's got a new talk show.
That's right.
So she's doing a Scream thing. So I did a Zoom with them that's going to be used as part of that. So I was just thinking about all this Scream stuff.
Wow.
But that opening segment with her was the first thing he shot. He almost got fired. like the Bob Weinstein, Harvey's brother, that was his, Dimension was his label. And this was the first film. And they're looking at the dailies and I don't see a film here. I don't see a film. So Wes convinced them, let me cut this together. It's there. Trust me. So for that first 2 weeks, he was shooting all night and then editing all day. He had his editors there. So he's working with them to get that opening segment cut, the Casey Becker segment. And it's one of the all-time classic horror scenes of all time.
It's amazing.
And then he sent in the rough cut of that, and that's when Weinstein goes, "Oh, what do I know about horror? I know nothing about making horror. This is great."
Good.
So yeah, he almost got fired. He almost got fired for shooting what was, the classic scene. So but he was still he was like your favorite college professor.
Yeah.
That was his demeanor.
Yep.
And, talk to him.
Yeah, super mellow. That was another question from someone was, what was your favorite kill in that movie? Yours.
Yeah, this was from Kelly at Boobies and Noobies. Just giving her a shout out.
In that film, well, because I did it, was mine.
Of course.
But oh gosh, what was that? I'm trying to think of the character name. In the garage door.
Oh, Rose McGowan scene. I can't remember her character name either.
Her character name, not Casey Becker was Drew.
Drew's.
Prescott was Nev. Gail Weathers. Well, we know who we're talking about. That that was a wickedly inventive way to off someone in a slasher film.
Love it.
Yes.
That was great.
Pretty quintessential. Yeah.
Okay, so next we're going to move on to something about Mary. Okay, the classic question you've been asked a million times. Did Warren find his baseball from Brett Betterson?
It was underneath the couch. We actually did a shot that the camera was underneath the couch with the ball in the foreground. We actually set up and shot that. And they decided, it's better to leave it a mystery.
Oh, there you go.
Couch, yeah.
So all these years later, people are still asking that question.
That's great. Answered here. You heard it here first.
And then, so you talked about the mentally challenged character and that you pulled from other characters like Rain Man and who did you bring to it the most?
I just, I used to do stuff like that just to keep myself amused. Like I would put some kind of little inside joke in a movie, in one of my performances, like in the Meatloaf movie. I did a movie about Meatloaf for VH1. And there's a scene where he got signed when he sang for the Columbia record executives. And I had them make name tags that said Bobby Fleckman, all from Spinal Tap.
I love it.
Spinal Tap, the record executive name. So I just did little crap like that just so it would amuse me as I watched the movie.
That's great.
The only one in Something About Mary, because I had a plethora of, I had of Mice and Men, I had Rain Man,
Gilbert Grape.
I had, the one that Bobby, and I didn't tell anybody that I was doing this. I just did it.
Yeah.
And I had, the only joke that got nullified was I had props after I've beat up Ben and I'm in the chair. Hey, I almost got fired from that movie. Well, I'll finish that story. It was this scene where I'm sitting in the chair and I said, because he's so big, he eats a lot. So bring me food. I said, can you bring me biscuits with mustard on them? Just bring me biscuits of Sling Blade, because Sling Blade was only a year old at that point. Well, Bobby walks over. Bobby Farrelly goes, what's with the biscuits with mustard? I'm like, it's just a little inside joke. And he goes, yeah, but that's kind of a Zucker Brothers joke, not a Farrelly brother.
He caught it.
So nullified my biscuits with mustard.
That's hilarious.
But back to, that was one of the early things that we shot. The studio had wanted, for Something About Mary, they wanted a name in that role. Now, again, on the page, there wasn't a lot to it. But they were still, they had their list of known names. And the Farrellys were adamant. They said the audience has to believe this character. They have to believe his condition. If it's a known actor playing this role, no matter how good they might be, the audience is going to know this is an actor pretending, and the humor won't work. So they won their argument. I was the guy. And then as we were shooting, I found this out afterwards. And there's a studio exec who's made his entire reputation on he oversaw that film. And that's the son of a bitch that wanted to fire me. He saw the dailies, like, it's uncomfortable. It's too real. It's like painful to watch. It's uncomfortable. Well, that's kind of the point in certain scenes.
Otherwise, it's a parody.
It was that scene where the fighting, where I'm on the chair, where he's so upset. And that was the one that triggered them. But the Farrellys, I didn't get fired.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
you were the best part of that movie.
I know.
When I saw that guy in the trades and I'd see his name climbing the ranks and everything it listed something about Mary for Fox.
Yeah. How was working with Chris Elliott, by the way, who I just love?
I didn't have anything with him.
Oh,
so I never even met him. We never overlapped.
That's so interesting how that happens. He was probably only brought in for a couple days or separate weeks. Yeah. You would think everybody would meet each other, but often they don't. Well,
yeah. Unless you're on a film, if you're there for the whole schedule. And most people, even when they do, if they have the money, hell, they're flying themselves or it's already negotiated. Most people don't stay on location for the entire.
How were the Farrelly brothers? Were they pretty open to improv, or did they want you to stick to their writing?
No, they were open. He was masturbating was a complete improv.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Next to Franks and Beans. And have you seen my baseball? That's the third most famous line. And that was the one it was in the scene where he zipped himself up in his pants.
Of course.
And the ambulance is bringing him out and I'm following him and I'm yelling, he was masturbating. And that was an improv. And
oh my God.
For the longest time, I would not do it. I wouldn't do the voice at all because people would want me as a party trick.
Oh.
And it felt uncomfortable to me again, it's a broad comedy. And in today's woke world, would that even get made? But, I've had comments made about me playing that role. That's in recent years. But I never wanted to feel like I was making fun of Warrentation.
Yeah, right.
The real Warren.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that to become a party trick. And I was offered, there was one in particular, the movie ended up bombing, but it was to playing this mentally handicapped guy in a comedy. And I wouldn't do it. No, I'm not interested. Because I didn't want to repeat myself. I didn't want to get stuck in doing that. And I didn't want it to become a party trick either.
Yeah.
So, 10 years or so ago, I sort of loosened up a little bit on that. But
there's a fine line with that. Yeah.
I signed up. I avoided it at first, but I have so many friends that are doing it. About 3 or 4 months ago, I got on Cameo because what the fuck else am I doing with my time? But that's the one thing I will not do it as a character. I still have the earmuffs. They're right over there.
Oh, I love it.
The earmuffs and I'll do Franks and Beans or something like that. But no, it's
no parody. That's good. And that was the other thing we were talking about is how you have not been typecast at all.
Yeah. Well, part of that is, the only power that you have as an actor, and everyone has it. The only power you have is to say no, and so many people get so desperate that they will do absolutely anything to get their toe in the door. And I just, it's a double-sided sword. And I naively thought when I started this, 30 years ago, I thought, well, you do special work. If it does well, then special things come your way. That's the way it works. And then the first time I got billing was due to the goodness of Wes Craven, oh, that's nice. And as I said, I'm not under any illusions. It didn't take Olivier to do what I did in Scream. A lot of people could do what I did in Scream. Not a lot of people could do what I did in Something About Mary, So when Mary hits, and I'm like, all right, baby, here we go, buckle in. And then it was crickets.
Yeah.
That was, taught me a lesson.
What is the lesson? Because it's just, that happens a lot to people. And what did you learn from that? Is it humility and faith?
You don't get anything that's not negotiated for you. Don't expect, out of the goodness of their hearts that you're going to get anything. So the importance of your representation, the importance of your billing, the importance of all of that stuff that I used to didn't care about. I mean, yeah, I cared. It's nice to see your face in a magazine or something like that, although magazines are a dying thing now. But I never could afford, like, hell, I only made $16,000 to do that movie. They paid me scale plus 10. So I couldn't have afforded, at that point, 20 years ago, a publicist was $2,000 a month. So if I'd have had my own publicist, it would have taken every dime that I made to pay a publicist. But it wasn't that important to me. I've never had a publicist. I had for 3 months, David Milch hired somebody on this thing for Deadwood that I worked with. But I've never hired a publicist.
Wow.
So as I'm saying, the double-edged sword, the more famous you are, the more known you are, the easier it is to get work. The easier it is to get things funded. I have things that I want to make. I did make a movie that I produced and I wrote.
We watched it, Bloodworth.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
It was awesome.
That just took so much out of me. But we got to make the movie that we wanted to make, and I'm proud of it. Yeah. But the more better known you are, the easier it is because money comes your way. Now, the flip side of that is the more you are known as a personality, the more difficult it is to disappear into the roles that you play.
Yeah.
And I can think of very few actors, Phil Hoffman being the prime example. That guy he was a character actor. This guy who completely, changed who he was in these characters.
Did you meet him in The Master?
No. No, I was only on Master for a couple of days, and I never crossed paths with Phil. Early in my career, there was a film that was called Joey Coyle that starred John Cusak. And Cusak was with that agency that I was with in Chicago. It's where he started. He was still with them. And there was a supporting role. The movie ended up getting released called Money for Nothing. It's not that great a film. But it was a supporting role. It was pretty significant. And they put me on tape for it in Chicago. And I was told, they're going to fly you out. They want to meet you. So I've only been doing that for a couple of years. I'm like, they're going to fly me to Los Angeles? Like, they're going to pay for it? Yeah, they want you to meet with so I'm all so excited. And then 2 days later, they found this guy in New York that they love. They're going to cast him. Sorry. And it was Phil. Wow. And that was the first time when I saw the movie, and then I started seeing him in other things, like I recognized who it was.
Yeah.
But that was one of the early points in my career that, him and Farley. Yeah. Second City, I thought that was my dream. Wow. And then Farley, it was down to me and Farley, and then Chris did it. And ironically, Chris was on the short list at Fox to play Warren in Something About Mary.
You're kidding.
And he passed away while we were doing it.
Oh my gosh.
I remember I got the news that night in my hotel room in Miami. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
Now, was that your first true love was comedy, or do you have one genre that you like better than the other?
Well, I mean, that was I know I'm not the Lone Ranger in this, but I come from a dysfunctional family, and the men in the family, especially my mother's side, the ones I felt more kin to, were very comfortable in beating the shit out of each other and being angry. And comedy was a great mask, telling a joke. And I was the insecure fat kid, growing up. And that was my way. I was the fat funny guy. So it was always a mask. And then we didn't even have a theater department. In high school, we had a very successful high school speech and debate team, which is how I met my wife, because she was on it.
Oh, cute.
That's awesome.
No, we had this incredible teacher, Larry England, who said, yeah, look, you're rural farm kids, and that there's nothing wrong with doing that. However, there's nothing that's impossible in life if you're willing to work for it. And so that was his philosophy. We were state champions 3 of our 4 years in speech and debate. Certainly not in football, because we sucked in football. I played that too. But it was I was the first in my family to go to college. And I went to Murray State, which is the local school. It's a school of like 10, 12,000 students, so it's a big college. But it was there, in the county where I grew up. I had no clue what I was going to do. And I thought, I took an acting class on a whim, and then it was like a fish to water. So early on, it was all comedy. I'm talking about when I was young, when I was a teenager. And then I started doing drama in school, and the stage was a safe place because that wasn't me. That's not me. That's a character that I'm playing. Yeah. That's, so I wasn't aware of the mask. But no, if it's genuine, if you're finding truth, it absolutely is you. Mm-hmm. Warren is me as much as Dan Dority from Deadwood is me.
Yeah.
So it took me several years to really recognize it, of where that well was and how deep it ran. So yeah, comedy was my first thing. And I always think I had a sense of timing. I was blessed with that skill. But it was the drama part that really changed my life, that changed me fundamentally.
Yeah. I want to circle back to that too when we ask about your movie Bloodworth, because a lot of the characters, I was wondering if there was some relation to your own family with that. Yep. But I want to go to Deadwood before we get to your movie. Are you good on time still?
I'm not doing anything.
I love it. Okay, perfect.
If I run out of water, I may have to go get some more water.
Yeah. We had a lot of questions about Deadwood, obviously. It is a brilliant show. You were amazing in it.
And rabid fans. There's
oh my gosh, so many fans that were asking such detailed questions.
And it's one of those series that people have watched 2
over
and 3, like The Sopranos. I mean, it's got that sort of depth and following.
Yeah.
And I still, because I worked on the writing staff seasons 2 and 3, so I was there for 99% of everything that's in it. I was there at its creation. And I was there when most of it was shot, even if I wasn't in the scene. But I can still watch it again and still pick up things, still pick up some nuance that I'd missed before. Wow. It's that good, and it holds up all these years later. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, Deadwood, I'm very proud of it. Ask away, and I'm here with my Dan Dority pillow from the movie.
Oh my God, that's amazing!
Wait, was that the real guy? That's him?
No, that's me.
Oh, that's you. Movie.
Oh my God, look at that!
We had a big, huge party, and they printed up all these character throw pillows in the lounge. I absconded with 2 of them.
It doesn't look like you.
I know,
maybe the nose has got a wrinkle in it or something.
Yeah, you've aged in that film. Yes. That is so. How was okay? So first the series, and then we'll see about the movie. But what was your favorite part of the film? Was it your big famous fight scene in that with Captain?
I mean, that's one of them. There are so many highlights in that whole thing. Yeah. That was one of them. Yes, and to try to pinpoint just one is nearly impossible because things would happen. Just this spark. We all knew that we had something unique. We knew we had something no one had ever really seen before. We had an enormously talented group of people, and we believed in the story that we were telling, and we completely gave over to it. And you couldn't. And now it was not all hugs and butterfly kisses. There were days that people were at each other's throats.
Yeah.
And David could be a prickly pear, David Milch.
Oh, I've heard.
The genius behind it all.
Yeah.
But we were all committed to it with 100% of our souls. So I couldn't wait to get to work because you never knew what the hell was going to happen. And sometimes just the smallest little thing, smallest little seed would just explode and bloom into something that you weren't expecting. And now that was when you followed the punctuation. It was so precise in its language. David wrote in meter. So you had to follow every syllable as it was written.
You mean like
iambic pentameter meter?
Like the song or something? Wow.
It is.
Oh, wow.
It's in pentameter, yeah.
That's amazing. How did you, were you guys trained on how to do that, or did most people know?
Pretty much everybody on the show, with the exception of Tim. Tim's background was as an artist, fine art, as a painter. But pretty much everybody else had been, had formal theater training and Shakespeare and classical stuff. So being comfortable with, words falling trippingly off the tongue certainly helped.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was, again, it's just a long litany of incredible moments, of moments that would happen. And then afterwards you would just,
Yeah.
And psychologically, I remember one moment, it's at the end of season 1 where it's juxtaposed into this sheer brilliance of David Milch. When we murder the captain, or we murder the preacher,
Yes,
a mercy killing, and then we murder Claggett up in Al's office. So it's 2 murders.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, they're cutting back and forth as the preacher, it's cutting back and forth to Doc, who's had this prayer to God.
yes,
About, did you need to see them suffer? Did you need? So all this building up to this crescendo. And I can remember being in Al's office where it comes in before we kill Claggett. And there's a scene where I'm sitting behind Al's desk and Claggett's right behind us, across the desk from me. And then Adams and Hawkeye are standing there behind him. You think they're his henchmen before they've come over and start working for us. And Al's in the scene. And there was just this primal, I know it's all pretend, it's all acting. There was a primal malevolence in that room that you really felt like we could kill this motherfucker. And it wasn't until it was over that I really felt this, oh my God,
Wow.
It felt for me, and I wasn't the only one. You could feel it in the fucking room, like the devil was with us.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I was just going to say, like a spirit came in the room with you or something.
Evil. Really evil. And again, I know it's pretend, we're actors, but it was, so that is a high water mark, not necessarily a feeling good.
Yeah.
Because, you think you want to go bathe in holy water once you've done that.
Yeah.
I would. Did it ever psychologically mess with you? Because you're doing all those killings. Did you get to a point where you started questioning yourself, or have to do a little method acting on the side?
No.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of what made the stage safe for me. I'm very much in touch with my own darkness, my own dark side, and learning that was the only way I learned to beat depression and anxiety. Is to, and that goes back to Wes Craven. And it goes back to fucking line and scream. Mm-hmm. Movies don't make monsters. They make monsters more creative, or killers, or whatever. And that was Wes's whole thing of movies and art as a catharsis for the darkness that's within you. Mm-hmm. I just rewatched, and I hadn't seen it in years. I just rewatched The Last House on the Left. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, what a brutal, twisted movie.
I haven't seen it.
And how somebody that was that kind and sweet-natured as Wes was, like, how did that man even conceive of something that depraved?
And that was a remake too. Didn't he write the original in the 70s and then redid?
He wrote and directed the original in 1972.
Yeah. And
it was, I think he just got paid. I'm not sure how actively involved he was in the remake.
Okay.
In which Garrett Dillahunt from Deadwood played Krug in the remake. But I saw the original one. Anyway, but that was Wes's thing, and I agreed with it because I loved, as a kid, I loved Motörhead. I loved dark, heavy music, and I love dark, scary stories. And I think that's the way we deal with our fears. And in going to see a scary movie, especially if one of the appeal is to teenagers, because you're just coming to terms with your own mortality. You're just, puberty brings you to the point of, I'm going to die someday. Mm-hmm. So, safely watching these stories at a distance allows us to better deal with our own fears. Yeah. And, somewhere down the line, I became comfortable with my own ugliness.
The dark side. Well, this kind of it plays into the podcast community too, because there's so many true crime podcasts and shows. But I did wonder, why is it so saturated? And that does make sense, you know. And I tend to go the other way. I like the light and the happy and the comedy. And
I've got the dark.
well, and then I popped out 3 kids, and 2 of my kids really like creepy dolls and the scary things. And they're going down that route. And so as a mom, I'm going, whoa, whoa, whoa. But maybe it's healthy to let them explore that. And
it is, because it's a safe way to confront your own primal fears.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly was that for me. Now, you know, hell, I was going to a hellfire and brimstone church that told me Kiss would send me to hell, you know? So, again, the stage was a place for me to come to terms with a lot of this stuff that had been ladled upon me in where and how I grew up. So yeah, the only way the only way I found happiness in my life was to be able to acknowledge the darkness within myself, and that way the darkness doesn't have power over you. That is Freddy Krueger. You know, when you confront your fears, when you confront it face to face, it no longer has power over you.
Yeah,
True.
I always felt like acting in general, you have to put yourself, and I only did a little bit of it and then I went behind the scenes, but it feels like you have to face your fear just stepping out in front of people and being vulnerable. And then
every art is that.
Yeah.
Every art is that. As an actor, you know, your body is your instrument. So you don't have that remove of you know, when you paint something on a canvas and then you put the canvas out there, well, the canvas is what's showing the reflection. It's not you.
Yeah.
You know, when you're doing live theater, it's just you and the audience. And there is an immense vulnerability to that. But I think, you know, the only true art comes from vulnerability, no matter how it expresses itself, whether it's on a canvas or whether it's on an instrument. So I think it all comes from the same place.
But being able, like you're talking about playing Dan Dority, being able to also control it, like letting it come out and getting really into it. But then also there's Earl Brown, who's able to not go that far, that you can, I mean, some people would go too far with their acting where they hurt themselves or others.
There have been a few performances, a few films that really kind of got me, that affected me once, you know, I was off camera, that took me a while to shed. Deadwood was so, I don't know, just the whole environment. I was able to take it off and put it on, you know, in that show. But I worked on the damn thing again 7 days a week. I was always trying to dream up some story or something, and then, you know, going and working with Dave. So it kind of was my immersive life.
Wow. How did you write that freaking? It's so many storylines. How did you take it on and figure it out?
The process for me, it all started with, in the pilot, I improvised a line, which is a huge fucking no-no with David Milch. It's in the pilot when Bullock and Starr pull up on the wagon, and I say $5 a week payable to Mr. Swearingen at the gym, and Bullock says, well, where's that? And I'm just supposed to say, you'll find it, and turn and walk away. And in one take, I go, you'll find it. Everybody does. And it cut. Milch comes walking over to me, and he goes, well, I guess I'm going to have to call WGA. I said, what? He goes, get an adjudication over who wrote this fucking thing, me or you. What the fuck did you say? And I'm thinking, you'll find it. Everybody does. And he kind of ponders. He says, script. He brings a script supervisor over. He goes, tell her what you said. Write this down. Never quote me on it because I'll deny it. But that turn of phrase works. That works. He walks off. So way later in the season, he comes up to me, and I'd realized early, if something wasn't quite trippingly off the tongue, he would be open to, you know, discussions if sometimes he was in a dark place and you just avoided him. But you could go to Dave and go, hey, how about if we, and he would listen and sometimes make adjustments, sometimes not. But I don't know what particular thing I had said or done was the impetus for this. But he come up to me one day and he goes, do you write? I said, yeah. He said, actually, I have something I want you to read. Come with me to the trailer. So he takes me, and he had done a 5-hour lecture at Yale, because he used to be the chair of the English department at Yale. But he had done a long lecture about his theory of writing. And it was transcribed exactly the way he speaks, with all the vocalized pauses and the ahs and the ums. And it was about that thick. And he gave it to me, and I read it here in this room. So I go to work. I read it over the weekend. I go back to work. And he goes, did you read that thing I gave you? I said, yeah. You read it? I said, yeah, I fucking read it. Yes. And he said, all right, well, it's my turn. I want to see something you've done. So I gave him a short story first. The next day, he comes up to me. He's got it. He'd read it. He said, that's got promise. You've written a script. And I had just written the first draft of what became Bloodworth. It's an adaptation of a book, Provinces of Night. And I had just dissected the book and put it in 3-act form and whatnot. And I did kind of want his feedback on it. And I said, yeah, it's a first draft of this adaptation. But yeah, he goes, let me see it. So I give it to him. About 3 or 4 days later, he comes back with my script, hands it to me, and he goes, it's obvious you can write. Next season, I want you to come to the writer's trailer. I want you to join us.
I just got chills for you.
Well, I was intimidated. Like, David's a genius. I've never met anybody like him. I've met a few people that have the level of intellect that he does, but it's almost invariably that there's this disconnect, emotional disconnect, like an Asperger's or something, because that part of their brain is so dominant. The intellect is that the emotional, and Dave's emotional intellect is as gargantuan as his intellect. David has this innate ability to just understand a person. Like, he can see through you, and he sees all the cracks, and Dave being Dave, he wants to fix those cracks in your soul. So now, and I've said this before, don't fall into the illusion of him as some sort of sandals and bead wearing guru, because Dave was, he was a heroin addict for many years, an alcoholic, who lived life. He had a danger streak in him a mile wide, and a lot of people got burned by it. So David was a very, very complicated man. And it wasn't till it was Steve Earle, the singer-songwriter, who we all had breakfast. And I knew those two guys are so much alike that they would either repel each other or bond, because they were both heroin addicts for years, both genius minds. Steve was a high school dropout, and David has the finest education anyone could ever get. But within 5 minutes, they're sharing junkie stories, and they hit it off. And it was Steve. We were in my pickup truck leaving that breakfast, and he goes, didn't you say he gave you a chance to write? I said, yeah. He goes, you going to do it? And I said, well, I was hemming and hawing. And he goes, well, if you don't, you're a fucking idiot, because that's a writer's writer, man. You don't meet people like that very often in this world. I met Townes Van Zandt when I was 17 years old, and I knew that man can teach me. That man can teach you if you get off your goddamn horse and do it. So that was the prodding that I needed.
Wow, that was enough.
To go and walk in the door, hat in hand, and go, all right, I'm here. So the process, that's a very long answer to tell you what the process was. You would come up with story ideas, either from history or from your imagination, and go to David, go, hey, Dave, I got this idea. Lay it out. All right, what else do you have? Well, that has promise. Yeah, go ahead, go out and write an arc on that. See where that story could go, and write 3 scenes. Let's see, scene-wise, dramatically, how it would. So you'd go away and you'd do that, and you give it back to Dave. And my favorite, I remember this very well, standing right outside the main sound stage. I had 3 things that I'd written, each stapled together and printed here. I handed them to him, and the first one picks it up. That's absolute shit.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then he's looking at the second, goes, this has promise. This has got promise. So that was Dave,
Oh, my God.
But you kept going. You didn't take that as an insult. You just kept working with him.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, I felt like I got paid to sit at the feet of Aristotle, you know, and he and Wes Craven have been like two of my life's great teachers, and the two that I've met in my career in show business. Just this very bright men that are just spiritually in tune with some higher frequency. So yeah, those have been my two greatest. I was just, you know, thinking about Wes recently. I wrote something that was heavily influenced by him. And then Dave, I had lunch with Dave right before COVID hit. He has Alzheimer's, and he's living in an assisted facility. And I went to have lunch with him, and he said to me, we sat down at the table. There's a restaurant in the. It's for retired people, and then the top floor people with cognizant decline. And so he was having a good day when I was there. But we sit down in the restaurant, and you know, people in the later stages of life, and Dave leans into me and he says, I have to tell you, Earl, the indignities of decrepitude are boundless. You know,
he managed to pull that out.
Way.
Wow.
Yeah. The indignities of decrepitude are boundless. So anyway, that's I would not take anything for those 4 years spent, or 3 seasons, but 4 years total, that we were creating that story.
So why did they cancel it? I had read.
Okay, so there we go. The first half of our interview with W. Earl Brown.
That is so cool. We love this guy. He's just great. We learned a lot about Something About Mary, Scream, and a little bit of Deadwood, which is a teaser to come on over to part 2. You're going to hear more about Deadwood, David Milch, what it was like working behind the scenes, getting into character, and we're going to hear a lot more about his country music and his film Bloodworth.
Yeah, his film Bloodworth, and a lot of music talk about that, because the people that he was able to pull in were Chris Christopherson. He talked about the soundtrack and that whole scene. Plus, like, Val Kilmer was in the movie.
Yeah.
So we hear about that a bit, as well as his new project, Dad Band, which is hilarious and great. You guys should go find that on YouTube right now, real quick. Go look up Dad Band. While you're on YouTube, you can look up Mouse and Weens as well, and all of our social media at Mouse and Weens. We would love you guys to find us over on Patreon too, patreon.com/mouseandweens.
Only $5 a month.
You can show us your support. That really keeps us motivated to keep on trucking and getting good stuff going for you guys here.
Keep on keeping on.
Equipment and all the costs of this. This does cost. So,
all right, we love you.
And we appreciate you listening. Take care, and we'll see you on part 2.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I've been getting my feet wet, so why am I stuck here again? Well, I was 17 when you came a-calling, and when you smiled, you told a million tales, but I'm a big girl now, and I ought to know better, so why am I stuck here again?